So as we begin to set up your research, we want to get into chapter 4, research design. And one of the things that we've talked about throughout this class so far are the concept of variables. Variables are exactly what they sound like. That there's variance in some phenomena. That not all that Latasia, that you're working off the premise that there's some variance in the levels of depression between children that grow up in adopted families and traditional families. And it's not the same. There's variance. Deja, what's your question again? You might need to unmute yourself, young lady. And make sure that you put yourself in the camera like Deja was there. Now I think we lost her again. It's not just enough to have your camera on and then like your camera's at the ceiling. I think we can all agree that doesn't make much practical sense. So always in this class, like have your research question and even your early accumulation of sources with you. You should be working on this in a little bit in pieces. And I would really encourage you to keep your research project at hand when we go through the lecture. Because a lot of things we're going to talk about will be, really germane and important, to your particular research project. Whatever the case is, obviously the questions may not be important enough for y'all to remember at this stage. Hopefully they will be soon. You want to be able to find a few factors that account for these variations. That, again, children are, maybe depressed. So, Latasia, you're trying to explain some of the factors that explain those different levels of depression. And in this case, you believe that it is rooted in family structure, or it could be. So a question that exemplifies this from a student that did know their research question: what explains the differences in rates of juvenile delinquency among single-parent families in America? Oftentimes, there's been data and research that said that single-parent households are associated with all types of things that oftentimes really simplistic in explanations. That it is fair to say that you have more juvenile delinquency among single parent households, although that does not necessarily mean that in two-parent that they're committing more crimes than two-parent children. Two-parent households oftentimes just are a little bit better and more skilled at not getting their kids institutionalized into the system. But that's neither here nor there. But clearly, right, there are a whole bunch of single-parent families that do not produce juvenile delinquents, right? We know that, correct? That most single-parent families do not produce juvenile delinquents. That's a social fact. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. So rather than just come away with the statement that, hey, single-parent families cause juvenile delinquency, we want to look at what is it about, like in single-parent families where there is juvenile delinquency, what kind of things, contribute to it? Because it's not just, okay, if I'm raising a child by myself, oh my God, my child's going to be a juvenile delinquent. So what we want to look at, Latasia, is what's the variance in this single parent household compared to this single parent household. It helps us explain the juvenile delinquency differences between those two groups. Maybe in one household, again, single parent oftentimes is a misnomer. So maybe in one single parent household, it's just, the mother. Maybe in another single parent household, it's the mother, the grandma. Maybe they got an uncle, that don't be taking no gruff off anybody. Maybe it's a single parent. If it's a single parent household where the parent is earning like $100,000 a year, they're probably not going to have those same type of challenges. So we want to look at the different factors or variables. Again, make sure that you're not only taking notes on what's here on the screen. The most important things that come out of lectures is actually what's being communicated. Everything's on the screen is things that you read already. And most of the times, again, if there's not context to the notes, it's not going to be as clear. So again, make sure that you take notes on what's being communicated verbally as well. So we're talking about factors here. Another word that I want you to hear are variables. So for example, right, so a healthy relationship. And not just a romantic relationship. If I would have meant that, I would have said that a healthy relationship, there are all types of relationships. You have relationships with your friends, with your siblings, with your coworkers. So there are no wrong answers here, but what are some factors or variables that you believe contribute to a healthy relationship? Again, keep in mind that the first things that we talked about here is that social research begins with logic and observation. So just use the things that, again, that seem logical to you and that you've observed. You've had healthy relationships, you've had some unhealthy relationships. What are the factors that you think contribute to a healthy relationship?
Could it be communication?
Good, very good, Deja.
Showing empathy or tact.
Good. Being able to empathize, being able to step in this other person's shoes and see how they feel and experience things. Good. What else? Is there anything else?
Giving advice.
Okay.
Motivate each other.
Good. What else?
Being a team player.
Good. So these
Showing
are different.
emotion.
Good. So these are different factors and variables. And again, I ask these questions on the basic things that we observe every day, because if we can understand the things that, like, go into this cocktail, we can understand the variables that inform your questions that you're interested in scientifically. Again, we think about variables, think about them as ingredients. Again, I cannot cook very well myself, Deja, but for those that can, you may know, like, okay, look, I got to put a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and just changing this one ingredient sometimes can change the whole entire mix. So keep these things in mind when we talk about our research variables. As always, you want to pay attention to the testable information. And even though we will not have a midterm exam in here, you will have 2 pop quizzes, Diamond Thomas, both of which will be pop quizzes. They could be coming at any time. It could be in 15 minutes, who knows? So if I were you, I would make sure I would stay up to speed with the reading. And the focus of this section, Ashaya, is how you set up your research design, chapter 4. If your research is not set up well from the beginning, Deja, and this is why we're going to spend so much time on this, making sure, again, Latasia, we get that research question and hypothesis has got to be airtight. If your research design is whack, then the information that you may get from it may not really be accurate. There are 2 approaches, the idiographic and the nomothetic. Idiographic and the nomothetic approach to social research. Deja, these are some challenging concepts. So these are some things that I definitely want you to review closely in the text. And when you look at your notes over the weekend, this is something that I want you to look at a couple of times. I don't expect you to be a machine or a robot where you just get all this stuff all at once, but I do expect you to give effort. And as I was telling Latasia earlier, a lot of y'all are going to be doing this in much more intensive ways in graduate school next year at this time. So this will give you an early start and make that transition a lot easier. And I say this from experience, like, when I first got into my graduate program, there were times where I felt like, I was going to drown. I was not a sociology major, Deja, in undergrad, so there was a lot that I had to learn in making that transition into, my graduate program. You all will have an easier transition in this regard. And I would even encourage you to keep some of these notes that you're taking now, particularly in some of your major classes, if you're going into human services, criminal justice, etc. Save some of that stuff. You're going to see it again. Diamond Thomas, what's your research question again, young lady? Do you recall? Or if not, break it out in front of you. And always bring your research question and topic to class with you, because I think the lectures will really help you in that regard. What's your question, young lady?
What social factors best explain the different levels of educational development between female-headed and male-headed single-parent households in the United States?
Very good, Diamond Thomas. So, in trying to find out any information, right, and listen closely here, like it's two ways. It's a couple. What this represents is a couple ways that we can go about it. So, idiographic means that if you want to know about the educational development of kids that grow up in those households, the best way to be for Diamond to find some way where she could live amongst those households and see it for herself. That would be the optimal way for her to get that information. It would be the best way, again, Latasia, if you could sit and observe every element. If I'm not sure if y'all ever saw The Truman Show. The Truman Show is a movie about Jim Carrey. It's based on reality TV where his whole life is on is aired on TV for the whole world to watch, but he don't know that he on TV. So we could do that where we could study somebody from birth, like they could Jim Carrey in that film. We could really have a full understanding of the cause and effect. Obviously, Diamond, that's going to be pretty difficult and impossible, right? Ain't nobody finna be letting you up in their crib and letting you just watch them and observe them and their interaction with their kids and stuff. So how can we get that kind of, so the ways that we go about getting that information is through some of the research methods that we're going to talk about. What are some of the research methods again? Does anybody recall? We're going to talk about getting to those in real detail probably next Thursday. What are some of the various research methods?
Observation,
Good.
experiments, case studies,
Excellent.
surveys.
Excellent.
Questionnaires.
Good, excellent. Write down, again, don't just be writing down the stuff I'm saying. Write down what your classmates are saying. They're giving you some goal. Yeah, I might have to do an assignment on this in a couple of weeks. Who knows? Y'all getting all types of material already for the careful listener and the diligent note taker. So those methods, Deja, again, how we go up, so the first one that I think it was Nashaya mentioned was observation. The first way we try and get information, we see it for ourselves. When I be telling you, do your own research, that's what I be wanting you to do. But because we got limited time and money, it is going to be difficult for us to observe everything. We're not going to be, even with all the camera phones, Deja, we're not going to be able to observe every case of police brutality in America. That doesn't mean that we can't get information about it though, right? So
Yes,
keep
sir.
some things in mind. But the first layer of this, I'm sorry, did somebody have a question or a comment? I apologize.
No comment. No questions.
For sure. So the first thing you want to do, right, in any situation, you want to pay attention to the explanations offered by the people actually living in the processes. I think I told this situation a couple of years back, Diamond, where there was a scholar at the University of Chicago, and he wondered, he was an Indian cat, an Indian from India, not a Native American. He was an Indian cat, and he wondered, like, man, I've been seeing and hearing, about these people out here selling drugs and stuff, but it seems pretty dangerous. A lot of people get locked up. I really wonder, like, why do people sell drugs? If you're an outsider to this community, it's not the only way that you can really learn about that is to walk in their shoes. So Deja, that's what he attempted to do. He went to the housing projects in Chicago, and he's like, hey, gangbangers. I was interested, in learning about, how and why, y'all be selling drugs and how it works and all that and everything. Like, I'm doing this research project. As two of the gangbangers, Deja, they decided which one of them were going to kill him. fate intervened, and one of the leaders came and was like, hey, like, what's going on? Because again, like I was like, they're like, do what? Like, so they think he the police, ain't no telling what's going on. Like, it's very dangerous. So the leader is like, okay, look, you want to know? You sure you want to know? He's like, okay, cool. We'll show you. So he had to pretty much live and behave, Nashaya, as if he was in a game for the better part of a year, 2 years. He's on the corners. True story, do your research. This is a book now. When they had to go do drive-bys, he had to go with them. So the best way, when people have tried to do research on homeless people, Latasia, one of the ways that they have done that is that they have lived as a homeless person for 2-3 months. So I don't need y'all to go that deep into trying to find out y'all research questions, but do understand those are the kind of layers that people go to. So when you in your career, Latasia, when you making 90, 100K a year and you on your third book and stuff, he's like, you know what? I want to find if people want to find out the sexual, it ain't got to be nothing that dramatic. It could be something like sexism in a law firm. As a man, it's things that I wouldn't be able to really see with that. So a woman may have to, again, plant herself in that law firm and just observe and describe what she sees in a scientific way, though, And that's what we're going to master in the next few weeks when we get into the methods. But again, the idiographic approach is just listen to the people who are actually going through this stuff and try and find out how they are experiencing it. That's the best source of information, right? With Allen University, for how many of y'all want to go to grad school? You can raise your hand if you don't want to unmute yourself. Who do y'all think is the best, to find out about how a school works? Who's the best people to talk to? The admissions counselors? The professors?
I will say your advisor.
No.
Yeah.
People that attend grad school?
Yeah. The students. Y'all know way more about Allen than anybody. It be all types of stuff to be going, official stuff to be going on, Deja. I be finding out for y'all. I'm like, damn, really? This happened? So the people that go through the processes daily, they best understand how things really work. Always keep this in mind, whatever you're trying to study. We're going to find a lot of research, Latasia, about adopted children. The people that probably understand that best are adopted children. But you can't just ask 5 adopted children. You got to ask as many as possible. And the more adopted children that you get information on, the more we're going to find patterns. Keep these things in mind. Also related to this, and several of you all are doing this, so in your question, Diamond, comparison with similar situations in different places at different times can also be insightful. So again, comparisons. She wants to compare the education development in single-parent households that's ran by women, single-parent households that's ran by men. And she wants to see if there's any kind of difference there. She's making a comparison. We also look at independent variables in correlation. We're going to speak about correlation in more detail in a moment. But again, where we believe there's a relationship between 2 factors, that once we see an increase in one factor, we see an increase in another. Let's look at some examples. So, let me go through nomomatic causality and then give a breakdown of correlation before we go into the examples that I think will make this a little bit more clear. So nomothetic explanation. This is different, Nashai, from idiographic explanation. Don't let the terms bog you down and confuse you. The main things I need you to know here, Latasia, are the concepts themselves of how this stuff works. Again, think idiographic, learning from the people themselves about a different phenomenon. As always, Nashai, when you see a term written in italics, say that closely and preparing for the quiz that may come up any day now. I tell you, there's definitely going to be in February. I'll give y'all a relief. It won't be today, but it definitely will be sometime in the month of February. I'm not going to stretch it out into March. So if you're behind on that reading, Diamond Thomas, you got some time to get ready, young lady. Do it quick. But do a little bit at a time. This is not a project. This class is not to overwhelm you. It will overwhelm you a great deal, Deja, if you procrastinate. It will overwhelm you a great deal if you procrastinate. So an empirical relationship, empirical again, speaks to, and again, make sure you're writing down what's being said as well. We talk about empirical. We can observe the relationship ourselves, and you and I can both see these changes. And usually, Nashaya, it can the changes can be expressed through numbers. The changes can be expressed through numbers. The more years, we can express years in numbers. The more years of education, how does income affected by that? The more year on average, the more years of education, what happens with income?
It increases.
Yes. Is that always true? No. There are always exceptions to a rule. There are always exceptions to a rule. There are always exceptions to a rule. Latasia, not every adopted child gets depressed. What you want to look at is for the adopted children who do get depressed, or if they do get depressed more than the traditional families, why? That's the main thing y'all trying to find out, why. So correlation, again, when you see rise in one variable, there's increase in another. Or decrease. The more hours that you work out, usually, the more hours that you work out, what happens to your weight? Goes down. Usually, are there exceptions? Yes, and in fact, there are some times where people work out to build on weight. So we got to be very precise with our wording. We don't say things scientifically like, hey, more years in education is definitely going to lead to more years, always leads to more money. No. Say, being raised in a single parent household always leads to juvenile delinquency. No. Don't say always, again, you want to be very precise. This happens 60% of the time. This happens 35% of the time. That's how scientists speak. And that's what y'all are training to be. Don't be saying that, that it's mainly Black people on welfare when the numbers don't show that that's true. If it was true, I'll tell you. It is true that most violent crime in America is committed by Black people. That's true. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. By percentage-wise, there's more violent crime arrests within our race compared to other groups. Most violent crime and most crimes pierces, there are so many more white people, Deja. Most violent crime is still committed by whites. But if we go into percentage and ratio, our percentages are higher. Again, that's what I'm talking about. Like, just that slip of the tongue, I'm communicating some false information. And people run with false information, particularly if that false information benefits some shit they already want to believe. People run with that. And quite frankly, a lot of racism is justified and rationalized by false information. Sexism is rationalized by false information. So again, we want to combat that. But for this relationship to be studied, to the cause has to come before the effect. The cause has to come before the effect. There's nothing easier in the world, Deja, than after something happened, you didn't tell her about. See, I told Diamond that dude wasn't no good. No, you didn't. Now that she didn't get through with him, you get all types of advice. But where was his advice when the relationship was going on? We got friends like that, right? They always know everything after the fact. Michelle, where was his advice a month ago? So the cause needs to come before the effect. The cause needs to come before the effect. Because you want to avoid a spurious relationship. A spurious relationship, Diamond, is the opposite of a correlation. A spurious relationship is the opposite of a correlation. There are coincidences. But sometimes, Deja, we use coincidences to explain science. So in recent weeks, like a couple of people that have gotten the COVID vaccine have died. That's true. You all know what's also true? 99.9% of the people that got the COVID vaccine did not die. So people will look at those two cases like, hey, see, this proves that the COVID vaccine makes you, and again, I'm not trying to make an argument in favor or disfavor of the COVID vaccine. That's not my point. My point, Latasia, is factual information. That's it. When COVID first hit, again, like I've lived through West Nile virus, the avian flu, all types of stuff. There's been pandemics, like constantly throughout human history. It's a very diseased planet. So when it first hit, I was like, yeah, I'm not finna, again, like I like the week that the world got shut down, I got on the airplane with no mask, and I flew to Atlanta, the busiest airport in the world. I went to a conference down there where many people were masked up. I was not. I'm sitting next to people on the panel and stuff and everything, just all willy-nilly. I went to a concert that week when I was down there. I went to after the conference, I went out to dinner. So I'm still I am not taking it seriously. Data and numbers made me begin to change my mind. It is I saw more cases and more people begin to die. And then the main thing that began to change my mind, Latasia, is when white people start to give up billions of dollars to shut everything down. I was like, oh, hell no. I'm a huge sports fan, Deja. When they canceled the NCAA tournament, that's like billions of dollars. I was like, oh, shit. They didn't cancel the tournament? Oh, these white people ain't finna be giving up this money for nothing, dog. I need to see what's going on. Hell, people was at the NBA game. People was in the stands. They was getting ready to tip off 10 minutes. They was like, oh no, this dude over here got COVID. They was like, oh hell no, everybody go home now. I was like, oh hell no. So as I got more, and then on a personal observe, you gotta observe things personally too. In short order, there would be people I knew who were affected by this stuff. My brother got it in August. He caught a bad one. It was rough. My mama was freaking out, calling me every 5 minutes, telling me to stay in the house. So we also have to observe things for ourselves, but it's important to note we're not going to be able to observe everything. But it's also really important to note that, look, y'all are you need to, I hope that you're really taking your education seriously. Because what you're training to be, Latasia, is an expert in something. What's your major, Latasia? What do you want to do when you're done?
Justice, I'm going to graduate school to get my Juris Doctorate degree.
Absolutely, good. So you're going to have all types of expertise in the law that other people don't have. You would have spent a lot of time in that. Again, you may not know a damn thing about chemical engineering. You might not know a whole bunch about accounting. You might not know much about how to fix a computer, but you're going to be a damn sure expert in that discipline and field. You're going to know more than other people. You're going to know more than me. In a very short time. So within that, I hope that as you see all the time it takes for you to get all the information that you know, and you're going to take for granted, you're going to be amazed at all the things that you know at some point. I have great respect for people's expertise. That don't mean that, you just take people's word for anything. You can still question stuff, but people that are in medicine and stuff like that, and people that are whether this be somebody that work in cars. When I go to the mechanic, I don't just listen to everything they say, but I do take their expertise into credit and to account. So I would encourage you to do the same as you go through research. But the way that you can challenge these experts, Deja, is understanding how they come up with information. Understanding how they come up with information. Because it's not that mystical. We give these folks way too much power when we come up with these conspiracy theories, Diamond. that a bunch of white people that got in the room, made up this COVID hoax, and they got all types of all types of other people to go along with it. Try and keep a secret with like you and like 4 of your best friends. Let me know how that works out. Right. But these rich people, the Illuminati, they sit in the room and they're good. Like, again, the rich white people in the world, do your research on this. They do not have that kind of loyalty to each other. Please stop believing that. That doesn't mean that there are many times where they don't lie against other people, but they shank each other in a second to get more power than the next person. ExxonMobil lost $22 billion. That's the oil company that used to be charging us $3-4 in gas. Them motherfuckers lost $22 billion last year. It's great. Ain't nobody driving, Latasia. Ain't nobody flying nowhere. They got all this oil and gas. They got nowhere to sell it. It's wonderful. It's a very powerful company that would change all this stuff if they could. They can't. Correlations. There's when one variable goes one way, it has an effect on the other. I'm not going to test you on any of this information here, Deja. However, these are some examples of correlation, and I want you again to be thinking of correlation with your own research. Your hypotheses, Latasia, are in many ways your predicted correlations, that you predict that there's going to be a relationship between being an adopted family and mental health. Diamond, you're predicting there's going to be a relationship between females in single-parent households, female and male single-parent households, and educational development. So some factual correlations, all of these correlations have been supported through research. The higher the family income, the higher the family reading scores. Not because, it ain't because, kids ain't smart, like money affects all types of stuff. I want y'all to pay attention to these correlations, Nashai, because when you have like your own families, these things can affect you. Having money ain't gonna like make it where your kids ain't got no problems. But unfortunately in America, money accounts for a great deal of things. Education, health, whether you go to jail or not. The less free time a juvenile has, the less likely he is to be criminally institutionalized. Keep in mind what we were talking about earlier, Deja, with single parent families. If you're a single parent family and you got your kid doing a lot of stuff, data shows your child is a lot less likely to be institutionalized. Of course, the flip side to that is that oftentimes having your child involved in a lot of stuff costs money. And it's not the single parent part that has the real effect. You know, the thing that has the real effect is not a person that's raising the child by themselves. What do you think has the most effect? Unmute yourself, Deja.
The child, right?
Nope. That if one single parent family has problems and another single parent family don't, what do you think is oftentimes the biggest factor? Don't overthink it.
One got money, one don't.
One extra credit point, Deja.
Oh no.
If you Oprah and you're a single parent, it might be it's a little bit different than like if it's Berquisha or somebody. No offense to Berquisha, but y'all know what I'm saying. Who's working at Walmart. So economics, if that single parent got dough, she gonna be good. Keep that in mind. Because we put these labels, but it's all types of like middle class educated, like Black women in particular, who are raising their children better than a lot of two-parent upper middle class white households. Do your own research on that, but it's the truth. Money is what counts. And in the same way, like if it's a single parent household, like if Latasia things couldn't work out with the dude, but he's contributing economically and actually seeing his child, the studies show that they're usually good. Keep these things in mind because a lot of times our family structures are stigmatized, like that there is some negative pathology to them. And the research, the factual research, doesn't be supporting that stuff. The smaller the class size, Nashaya, the better the student's performance. Again, like we're very deliberate at Allen. We want to keep these classes small. People learn better that way. Smoking marijuana is correlated with boosting appetite. It's true, Diamond. Don't try this at home. Being from the South is correlated with a person being more likely to routinely attend church. Does that mean that everybody in the South go to church? No, Deja ain't been to church in like, 3 years, dog. Does that mean that people up north don't go to church? Of course not. But it's more common in the South. The lower the personal income, the lower the life expectancy. How much money you have impacts on the Shire, how long you even live. It shouldn't. Research shows it does. The older Black males get, the more prone they are to develop prostate cancer. Again, having this kind of information can be helpful and beneficial. That again, right, is going to be understood. The reason why so many of your parents stress you early on, where you probably weren't, most of y'all probably weren't even given a choice of going to college. Yeah, most of y'all ain't got no kids yet, and it's already understood that your kids is going to college because y'all already know this variable. The more years of education, the higher the income. Now, again, the problem with that is that sometimes young people hear that and they hear, okay, let me just go to school and I'm gonna get big money. It ain't as simple as that. You got to know what you exactly what you want to do. And of course, some majors make more than others. But having information like knowing that as I get older, I'm more likely to develop prostate cancer, and I'm a few years away from being at the greatest risk. But having that knowledge can benefit me, and that's what we want to be able to use science for. To use knowledge to make to inform people to make our lives better. As we get ready to close very quickly, we want to be careful about spurious correlation, where sometimes there's a relationship between variables that don't necessarily have anything to do with each other. Let's take a 10-minute break. I'm going to log back in at 1:50. I'm going to log back in at 1:50, and we'll take it from here. You can use the exact same link that you use here. I hope to see you all on the other side. Are there any questions about anything that we've discussed so far? What I've talked about so far, are y'all following me and does this make sense to y'all? If it don't, I need y'all to tell me. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, it makes sense.
All right, for sure. If it don't, y'all can tell me. It's okay. I know I mean y'all with a lot. As always, this part of the lecture will be recorded and posted if you need to review it again. And as we go through stuff, if there are things you don't understand, please write your questions down as well, and please share them. I'll see y'all again at 1:50.